work under the PMCM Program Management, Construction Management for the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project. Tonight, we're joined by colleagues from the PMCM as well as DDC and a very special guest, Julie Freeman from the NYC Office of Management and Budget, who's going to give an overview of the Section 106 process for the fire boathouse. To start, so let me just share my screen, and can everyone see it? All right, great. So this is the items we'll cover tonight. We'll start with Julie's presentation, and I just want to note that she's here to give an overview of the process and not necessarily to take like official comments on the fire boathouse or the programmatic agreement, but she can go into more detail about all that. And then after her presentation and questions, we'll move into our normal construction updates. Normally, this would be a month where we would be giving hiring updates, but because we expect, this to be a little bit of a longer presentation covering the Section 106 process, we're going to do hiring updates for the first quarter of 2024 next month instead. And now I will hand it over to Julie.
Thank you. Parker, do you know, am I going to be able to advance, or do I need to ask you to advance the slides?
You'll have to ask me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a feeling. Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
No worries. So thank you, everyone for being here. By the way, I had no idea this was going to be live streamed on Facebook or anything. So, this is the first time for that. So my name is Julie Freeman. I am the director of the Community Development Unit here at the Office of Management and Budget. And I will explain why we are involved. So I recognize some of the names on the list, but there are several new names on here. So I thought it would be helpful to kind of take a step back. I know all of you are familiar with ESCR and the fire boathouse and whatnot, but I thought it would be helpful to kind of take a step back and go over the kind of historic review process kind of as a whole, so everybody is on the same page and kind of has the same understanding. So with that, Parker, yes, thank you. So this is going to be our agenda. It looks longer than it's actually going to take, but first we can just go to do like a quick introduction on the ESCR project and whatnot. Then we will go into Section 106 overview. Section 106 is a reference to Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966. We will explain what a programmatic agreement is and why that discussion is relevant here, what an alternatives analysis is, and then what are the next steps related to the fire boathouse. Thank you. So just quickly, just a quick introduction to kind of to the whole concept. So as you know, East Side Coastal Resiliency Project is partially funded with federal community development block grant disaster recovery funding that comes from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. And because this is a federal grant to the city Office of Management and Budget, we act as both grant administrator, so we manage spending and whatnot, but we also act as what's called the responsible entity for CDBG-DR funding. And what that means is we are the entity responsible for ensuring the environmental review is conducted according to federal requirements. So we don't actually do the environmental review, but we, kind of manage the process to ensure that the federal environmental review requirements are adhered to. And the reason for that is just because, the grant is coming to the city, but there needs to be some agency or entity responsible for ensuring that that takes place. So that's us. And because this is a federally funded project that has to go through a federal environmental review, one of the components of a federal ER is compliance with Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we just kind of want to describe what Section 106 is and kind of isn't. So Section 106 encourages but does not mandate preservation. So the federal government is not going to tell a grantee that they absolutely cannot conduct a project because, it's going to impact a historic property. It encourages preservation, but it doesn't mandate it. What it does require is for us to consider the effects of a federally funded project on historic resources. We are obligated to avoid, minimize, and or mitigate adverse impacts to historic properties to the extent possible, and reasonable. And as part of requiring consideration of, the effects on projects on historic resources, that a key component of that is consultation. So we are required to consult with interested individuals and organizations, to get their thoughts on the impacts to these properties or, resources and how we could mitigate that. We do want to note, similar to the concept of Section 106 not mandating preservation, consultation also does not mandate a specific outcome. Consultation is the process of seeking, discussing, and considering the views of consulting parties about how projects will affect historic properties and how those should be handled. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is kind of a 35,000-foot overview of the Section 106 process. There's four main steps here. So the first is to identify all of the properties or areas that will be impacted by a proposed project. So this is known as the area of potential effect. The second step is determining within that area of potential effect, are any historic resources in there and how might they be affected by the project? Then third step is exploring options to avoid or mitigate adverse impacts to those properties. And then finally, the fourth step is reaching agreement with interested parties, especially the State Historic Preservation Office, any tribal historic preservation offices, and I'll get into that in a little bit in a second. If necessary, the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation, and then any consulting parties, coming to an agreement with everybody about how the project is going to address any adverse impacts to historic properties. So for the fourth step about reaching agreements, one of the main or one of the typical ways that is accomplished is through use of a programmatic agreement or a PA. So a PA is a legally binding document that governs how the project will be implemented. Especially this is often used for projects that are particularly complex like ESCR, where there might be a lot of different activities taking place over a large area, over a large time. So the PA is a legally binding document that discusses how we will address the adverse impacts that we expect to be, that we can kind of foresee. These are also often used when the responsible entity, in this case us, when we can't fully determine at the outset of a project or at the start of a project how a particular project might affect historic properties. With a project like this that's going to take place over several years, unforeseen events happen, or there are unforeseen conditions that we're not aware of. So the programmatic agreement guides not only what we will do, but how we will make decisions related to those historic properties and any potential adverse impacts. So we'll go quickly over this because this is super relevant to the discussion, but there are three types of parties that may sign the programmatic agreement. Next slide. Thank you. So the first is the signatories. So signatories have the authority to execute, amend, and terminate the agreement. At a minimum, the responsible entity, so in this case OMB, and the State Historic Preservation Office or the SHPO are signatories to almost all programmatic agreements. Other signatories may be the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation, and then if a project has the potential to impact historic properties or resources on tribal lands, a Tribal Historic Preservation Office or officer may also sign as a signatory. Signatories must sign the agreement for it to be executed. If one of these parties refuses to sign the agreement, it cannot move forward and become legally binding. Then we have invited signatories. So these are entities that are invited to sign due to their responsibilities related to the agreement. So, for example, in the case of ESCR, the New York City Parks Department was an invited signatory because so much of this is park land. They have responsibilities related to certain things like signage and how we will mitigate some of the adverse impacts. So, the New York City Parks Department's an invited signatory. Um, Invited signatories, once they have signed the agreement and it's executed, they basically assume the status of a traditional signatory in that they can amend or terminate the agreement. If they do not sign the agreement, it can move forward. It can become executed and legally binding, but we can't impose any responsibilities on those parties. So using Parks as an example, if Parks refused to sign the agreement, we could still execute it, but we couldn't impose any requirements for Parks in that agreement. We couldn't say that they have to do X, Y, and Z if they didn't agree to do that. Next slide. Thank you. And finally, we have concurring parties. We also refer to these as consulting parties from time to time, but the actual term is concurring parties. So these are often individuals and organizations that have a demonstrated interest in the project, either because they have some kind of economic or legal tie to specific properties within the project area, or because they are simply interested in, historic resources and historic preservation. Um, they are often invited to concur in the agreement, but they do not have the authority to amend or terminate it. So by signing a document, the term that the advisory council uses a lot is they're endorsing the agreement. That we know that that's not necessarily always the case, but a refusal to sign by a concurring party does not prevent the agreement from moving forward. We can still execute it and move forward without the signature of a concurring party. So now we'll get into the specifics of ESCR. So the ESCR programmatic agreement, it's been amended once already, but this is kind of the current status of it. So the signatories are New York City OMB, the New York State Historic Preservation Office, and the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. New York City Parks is an invited signatory, and then I won't read the entire list of the concurring parties, but you can see here that there are quite a few. Some, like LPC, is a city agency. Others are, either historic preservation groups or, organizations that have links to the Lower East Side or the East Side of Manhattan. So the original ESCR programmatic agreement, it was executed in 2019. It established the area of potential effect for the ESCR project. And within that area, it identified 17 historic properties, one of which was the Fireboat House. And we explained there that it was included because it was at the time determined to be eligible for the State or National Register of Historic Places. So the city made certain commitments in the original PA regarding the Fireboat House. So the first was to evaluate flood resilience options for the Fireboat House. So figure out how we could protect the Fireboat House since it was on the unprotected side of the flood wall. That we would coordinate any proposed measures with the state, with SHPO and LPC for review and approval, and that we would share preliminary and final designs with the consulting parties for comment. I do want to note, in my role, overseeing CDBG DR, I have only been overseeing DR for about the last probably like 18 to 20 months. So I was not involved with sharing preliminary designs, but my understanding is that those had been shared maybe around 2020 or 2021 with the consulting parties. So I just wanted to mention that I wasn't, working on this at the time, but that is my understanding. And then finally, the city also committed to develop a construction protection plan for the fireboat house and several other properties within the area of potential effect, just to make sure that, certain vibrations and whatnot didn't damage the facility. So those protection plans were developed and implemented and have been followed for the past several years. Next slide. Thank you. Then in 2021, the city amended the programmatic agreement. That was primarily to recognize that the SHPO had found 2 additional properties within the area of potential effect to be historic. So those were the East River Park Track House and the Tennis Center Comfort Station. I think that's probably familiar to a lot of you. But the reason that I'm bringing up the amended programmatic agreement is because in that the city made additional commitments regarding the fireboat house, or kind of reiterated our commitment. So we agreed to again submit pre-final design plans for resilience measures to SHPO and the consulting parties for a 30-day comment period. We agreed that we would consider comments on those plans and revise the city's plans to the extent feasible. And then if the city doesn't agree with comments or if the parties can't come to an agreement on the proposed plans, the city will follow the dispute resolution process in the original programmatic agreement. I won't go through the entire dispute resolution process here, but it's outlined in the original programmatic agreement. It basically says that the city will provide, all of the materials and whatnot to the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation and work with them over a 30-day period to get their kind of guidance and recommendations on the plans. So that kind of brings us to recent, not current day, but recent times. So as many of you know, in 2023, the city, while attempting to begin rehabilitation related to the fireboat house and the esplanade that surrounds it, the city learned that the piles supporting the fireboat house are substantially deteriorated, much more so than originally anticipated. And because of that, the building was starting to show signs of stress, such as cracks in the foundation, cracks in the walls, things like that. So on December 8th, 2023, several city agencies met with the New York State Historic Preservation Office and the Landmarks Preservation Commission to inform them of the conditions in the fireboat house, and that the city thought it was possible that demolition may need to be pursued. SHPO requested that the city complete an alternatives analysis for the property to evaluate options for the site. Next slide. Thank you. So the alternatives analysis, it's a process through which the city explores alternatives for addressing impacts to a historic site. So, we'll discuss the advantages and disadvantage of each alternative assessed. So I know the city is looking at, again, rehabilitation, possible demolition. I believe the alternatives analysis is also exploring possible relocation of the building. The alternatives analysis will explain the reasoning behind the preferred proposed action. So it'll explore the options and then, kind of explain the reasoning behind whatever we're proposing. I do want to clarify that alternatives analysis is not a feasibility study. It's not going to be, this 1,000-page long document getting very, very into the weeds. It's going to be a little bit more high level than that. So I just wanted to kind of set expectations about what it would be. Next slide. Thank you. And then this is the final slide for now. So this is kind of the next steps as to what is going to take place over the next few months. Because as you can see, it's a long drawn out process. So the first step is the city is currently working on an alternatives analysis now. So we are a few weeks in. I'm not sure exactly when this is going to wrap up, but we expect that the entire process will take about 6 weeks. It might, drag a little bit longer than that. The next step after that is to present the alternatives analysis findings and the preferred option to the PA signatories and consulting parties. As mentioned in the PA, Once we have presented these findings, there will be a 30-day comment period for the signatories and consulting parties to weigh in with their thoughts on the proposed path forward. That, because it's 30 days, that will take about 4.5 weeks. The city will take a few weeks to review the comments, to respond to them. The city will set up follow-up meetings with the signatories and consulting parties to go through the comments and to discuss possible mitigation options. This is something I forgot to add a slide about, but I'm sure many of you were familiar with that. As part of this, we would have to come up with mitigation. If for example, if we were to demolish the property, we'd have to come up with mitigation options. So, whether that's signage, an exhibit, some kind of display or something, we would have to work through those options with the signatories and consulting parties. After that, we would prepare a draft second amendment to the programmatic agreement, outlining everything that we have discussed and agreed to. The programmatic agreement would be circulated for a 30-day comment period, and then we would review and respond to comments on the PA and then execute the amendment. I don't know if you can see it on your screens. It looks like the asterisk got cut off, but the asterisk on those last 3 steps basically says that if we end up deciding to stick with the original plan of rehabilitation and flood proofing of the fire boathouse, those last 3 steps would not be necessary. We would just use the existing programmatic agreement. So as you can see here, it's going to take probably upwards of half a year about to complete this process. So it's not going to be quick, but I hope this is clear and gives everybody an understanding of what is to be expected. And that is the last slide.
Thank you so much, Julie.
Of course, my pleasure.
So I think it probably makes sense for us to do questions on this first and then move into our normal construction updates slides.
Frank seems to have a question. Go ahead, Frank.
Can you all hear me? Oh, it is
Yep.
working. Wow, thanks. Sorry. How you doing? Thank you for the presentation. And I just wondered, I guess for me, well, not I guess, but for me, the directly impacted party is clearly the Lower East Side Ecology Center. And whereas I would welcome any comment that Christina wants to bring, I'm just wondering, is this the first presentation that they would have seen of this, or have they been briefed beforehand about this? And then the part 2 to my question is sort of a question / statement, which is that, like, I think they should really be driving who the concurring parties are and the involvement in all of this. Anyway, thank you.
Parker, I don't know if you want to weigh in, but just speaking for my understanding is that LESIC has received at least one, possibly multiple presentations, but I will let Christina speak.
Yes, that's my understanding as well. And that they've been added as a consulting party, but I guess I'm not sure the process for selecting the consulting party is, beyond what you've presented today.
Right. I mean, if there are other organizations who, are interested in this project and are interested in the impact on historic properties in the areas and whatnot, anybody can feel free to reach out to me, and we can discuss adding them. We've added several organizations, I want to say, just in the last 6 weeks. So we have added several additional.
Thank you.
Diane.
Thank you. Hi, Julie. So speaking of adding consulting parties, is it possible for this community advisory group to be a consulting party?
That is a great question. I don't know the answer to that. Because to be honest, I'm not exactly sure, is this like a formal body that has like leadership? Because there is a requirement that whoever signs on behalf of the organization has to be kind of able to speak for the entire organization. So I don't know exactly how this is structured. This is my first meeting with the CAG, just
Mhm.
for full transparency, but it's something we could definitely explore. I might, depending on the structure of the organization, I might just have to ask HUD about that, to be honest.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think that's something we could pursue offline with Paula and Tara. You know, there is some organization to this, but we can go into those details later. I just think, to Frank's point, that, you know, if we're going to have consulting parties that are community-based, it would be ideal to have one that is broadly community-based. And this group represents a collection of, you know, friends of organizations, private and public housing representatives, other community organizations that are interested in resiliency and green space and that sort of thing. And, you know, all of which everyone has a stake in the project and therefore a stake in what becomes of this building in the process. So I will work with you and Paula and Tara afterwards to see what we can figure out there.
Thank you.
Christine is next.
Yeah, thank you, Paula, and thanks, Julie, for this presentation. And I just wanted to say that we certainly have received presentations about the fireboat house and the flood mitigation plans that the city came up with. But this is the first presentation that we sort of seeing about like all this process of the 106 section 106 process. And we signed on as a consulting party, which I'm really happy about. And I would also just second Diane's comment that to me, it makes a lot of sense to have a big tent for people to really have input into, you know, what happens to the building, and also, because I think the more voices are heard, the better, and the more representative of the community it is, and hopefully we can also come to a consensus of what makes sense for everyone. The one thing that I want to mention is that what I'm a little bit that I just want to make a point about is that in 2023 it seems that the city already knew by the summertime that the building is in trouble, compromised, however you want to call it. And I don't think anybody has gotten any communications about that. And that, again, is disappointing from where I sit in this process, because we're really interested in planning and coming up with solutions about how to return to East River Park once it's finished and it's built. And there are commitments to also, you know, build whatever it is that's going to be there for us to do the programming and what have you. And it just feels like time is running out on that process, because all of that takes a long time. And I just want to express my displeasure, if you will, of really the community and us not hearing earlier that there are some real problems there. And yeah, I'll leave it there.
Wendy.
Hi, can you go back one slide, please? Oh, there was one with a map just before this, right? Or, yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to say that I was one of the people who toured the site with the group last week, and it struck home over and over the work that Lower East Side Ecology Center did in the park to make it green to manage 1,000 volunteers a year to produce an endless supply of topsoil and planting medium. And right now, I can't imagine that that park's going to thrive without them. So please do your best to make sure that Lower East Side Ecology has a home where they can actually do the kind of stewardship and environmental education that is so meaningful and important to people all over the world, but especially in this city on the front lines of climate change. That park had 500 species documented in it the year before everything was destroyed. I'd like to see them come back too. It's their home as well. So it's all part of a bigger plan that you really need to focus on. Thank you.
Any other questions for Julie? Okay, I don't see any.
Well, thank you everyone for listening to my presentation. If it's okay, I might just go off video and kind of lurk in the background and listen to the rest of the meeting if that's okay. But thank you all very, very much. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Yeah, thank you so much, Julie. This was really helpful. It helped me even understand the process better. So I'm glad that you came to share this. And yeah, if the CAG wants to send any follow-ups to Paula and Tara, and we can get them to Julie, that'd be great. Thanks again.
Great, thank you.
All right, so now we can move back into our usual programming of construction updates. So, of course, the 3 contracts. These are the focus areas for our presentation tonight. I will also note that as we knew that we were covering more material than usual, and because this CAG meeting is a week earlier than it would typically be, we don't have a ton of updates, but we'll be covering some construction updates and environmental slides. So this is the overview of contracts. You're all very used to this slide. The only real new things on here are that the final gates for project area 2 were installed at the end of March. So all the gates for that project, gates 7 through 18, have been installed. And now there's been over 3,000 feet of flood wall installed. So that's very exciting, just getting closer to the finish line there. And then, so moving on to project area 1, the construction activities are pretty much the same as last time. In the closed park area, we have the bulk of the activity with the esplanade removal and reconstruction along the waterfront, deep sewer activity, especially in the area north of the bridge, the flood wall construction, fill material is still being delivered, of course, by barge. The ball fields, as many of you saw last week on the walkthrough, are getting closer and closer to being completed. And the nature exploration area is being constructed. For the Delancey Street Bridge, we have the pier foundation and wall construction. There's also construction for the Corley's Hook Bridge. And as also the folks on the walkthrough saw, and we have some photos, the passive lawn was closed and then leveled to create the staging area for the assembly of the Delancey Street Bridge and subsequently Corley's Hook Bridge. And it's really interesting to see. Down by Montgomery Street, we have ongoing utility work, and flood wall construction will hopefully be beginning soon. Montgomery to Cherry, we have the greenway along the highway. They're still installing the flood wall there. At Houston Street, they are continuing pile installations and the pedestrian detour shift everyone's used to. And then the preparation for micro tunneling is still ongoing at East 10th Street, so they still haven't started micro tunneling, but they're getting closer. And along East 10th Street, they're moving along with the sewer work. So thank you to everyone who came to the walkthrough last week. I think it's one thing to come to these presentations every month, but then to actually see the work on site is something a whole lot different. So just thank you for taking the time to come and meet with us and ask questions. I know that you all had sent over some written questions before the walkthrough, and I think we were able to answer a decent number of them on the walkthrough, but we're still finalizing our written responses, which we hope to get to you soon. And that said, the questions surrounding when other amenities other than the ball field will open, as noted on this slide, is still being worked out. So we may send over a first round of answers that has answers to all the questions that aren't around timeline of openings, and then update you all once we have those finalized. But so a summary of the points at the walkthrough here is that the ball fields are scheduled to be open on September 1st in time for the fall permitting season, as we mentioned at the last CAG. And we'll update you as soon as we know about other amenities. The reason for that is that the ongoing construction activities surrounding the ball fields involve heavy construction equipment and interferes with any safe public access to the ball fields. We do expect that the Delancey Street Bridge will be in place and open in advance of the September 1st opening. So that is how the ball fields will be accessed. However, in the event that they are not, that the Delancey Street Bridge is not ready to open by then, the access will be via the Corlears Hook temporary bridge and then along the Esplanade and up the path to get to the ball fields. And while it was brought up at the CAG walkthrough, installing a new temporary bridge has been determined to be infeasible and would interfere with necessary construction activities surrounding the ball fields, possibly delaying the opening of other amenities. And then the screenshot on the right is just the handout that we provided to folks on the walkthrough to kind of give an overview of exactly where these different elements and construction activities were happening that interfered with public access to the ball fields. And I think that Paula had some extras, but we're happy to share that with you all in like a PDF format as well. So these are some photos from PA1. Those on the walkthrough got to see this in person, but on the left we have the sort of southernmost area of the Esplanade. This area has yet to have the precast pieces put in place, but those you can see that they are constructing the footings for the precast pieces of the new Esplanade. And then the second photo, the one in the middle, is the Stadium Light Foundation. This picture doesn't really do it justice. It's quite large because the stadium lights will be so tall. But soon we hope to have the lights up around the fields. And then the photo on the right is the boulders in the nature exploration area. And then for the photo on the left is the Delancey Street Bridge and Corlears Hook Bridge staging area that we mentioned before. So this used to be the passive lawn. They leveled the area, poured concrete where they're going to stage the bridge, and then they'll actually build the bridge or assemble it on these supports and then pick it up and move it up the FDR and put it into place over the summer. So we'll have more updates as it gets developed, but you'll see a lot of progress in this spot in the coming months, which is pretty cool. And then the one on the right, we didn't actually see this mock-up on the walkthrough, but I wanted to share it because it's, it sort of captures a little bit more what the Esplanade will look like. This is a C-rail mock-up for the Esplanade. So you can see that up on the edge. So that's the level of where the grade will be for the Esplanade in this particular section just south of the Williamsburg Bridge. The black on the bottom is the waterproofing for the Esplanade. And then in between that and the pavers will be either lightweight fill or foam material that they can grade to create the gradual undulations of the Esplanade. Oop. And then moving on to PA2. The only real update we have right now, since we're getting so close to completion, is these were the last two gates. The one on the left is gate 7, which is the smallest of the gates in the whole flood protection system for ESCR. And then the one on the right is gate 8. So now they've completely finished that. They're almost done with the flood wall installation, and then it'll be just the restoration of Murphy Brothers Playground. So we look forward to all of that opening later this year. So for environmental monitoring, this month we only have Project Area 1 data. We will send to Paula and Tara next week Project Area 2. As I mentioned, because the CAG is a week earlier, Project Area 2 wasn't able to get us their data in time for us to go through it and break everything down. But as just a reminder, these are the locations of all the air quality monitors. We did confirm that they are still in these locations. However, the team is now that construction activities are starting to move, and they want to accommodate those construction activities, they're developing a plan to move some of the air quality monitors north, around East 10th Street, as well as in the Ballfields, north of the bridge in the former Ballfields area. So as soon as we know that plan is finalized, we'll update you all with where the monitors are being moved. And then this is the update for March. As you can see, there were very few alerts. None were over, all of them were under an hour long, and whenever it was caused by construction activities, dust suppression techniques were applied. And then finally, parallel conveyance. So this is the overview of all the different locations. They're still preparing for excavation inside of Curlier's Hook Park, and continuing utility relocation in and around that area. Additionally, soon the contractor expects to begin the actual sewer work. So this is the meat and potatoes of the parallel conveyance work, and that will be taking place where you see the red line on Water Street and Jackson Street to tie into the interceptor. Most of the other locations are utility relocations in advance of the eventual sewer work that will happen there. And then there's some Con Ed steam abatement work happening in the northern areas. So here are some photos. The one on the left is an installation of a Con Ed manhole casting. The one in the middle is the excavation for a streetlight conduit installation at Delancey and Baruch. And then the last one is a Con Ed steam main abatement. And that is all the updates that I have. I was hoping to keep it short so that we can fit everything into the hour. So now we can do questions.
Thanks, Parker. Frank has a question.
Hey, Parker.
Hey.
How you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Good, good, good. Quick question, a little bit maybe outside the box, but given the earthquake that happened recently in the city, are there vibration monitors that have been interspersed throughout this project?
Yes, there are vibration monitors throughout the project. We
I thought
don't,
so. Okay.
yeah, we don't report on the vibration monitoring in the same way we do with air quality, but there are 24-hour vibration monitors throughout.
Would the city report if there was any anomalies after that earthquake? Is that a consideration?
I can ask our environmental team and see if there's anything we could say, but it might need to be foiled.
Okay. All right.
So, but I'll let you know.
Thanks.
Wendy.
Thank you. So I was on the walkout, as I said, and I was walking with Robin Chechtel, whose son played baseball on those fields, and she noticed there's nothing for shade on the dugouts. And so that means that coaches will be stringing up tarps on this brand new playfield. Was there any note made of that? Anything can be done about that? so the kids don't get, sunburn, sun issues?
I think that there is not currently a plan for shade, shade, like temporary shade structures around the fields, but I can take that suggestion back.
That would be great. The plastic field is going to be a lot hotter, as we know. Many places have banned turf because of it. So overheating is going to be an issue there for young people.
Mhm.
Up in PA2, you said the gates are nearly done. Has it been determined which city agency is going to manage them going
Yes,
forward?
the
Which
Department
one?
of Environmental Protection will manage the floodgates.
So they'll be the ones closing them in a storm?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there going to be any test closings?
So they have actually tested the many of the gates that have already been installed. I'm not sure. I know that they haven't been able to test the new ones just yet, but they do test all of the gates. And there's the contractor tests the gates now, but after they're turned over to DEP, then DEP will be responsible for routine testing of the gates.
I think that's all for me right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robin, you're next.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Wendy, for bringing that up, about the shade. Hi, Parker. I guess
Hi.
various meetings and design looking at, I know we talked about shade in this park. And I also know not just for the ball fields, but other places, but especially it's kind of like, how you renovate your kitchen and when you see that in the middle of it, you go, oh my God, the washroom, the dishwasher's in the wrong place. It's like, oh, you built this incredible ball field and there's no shade. And, it doesn't make sense for people to just like do what they've been doing for decades, which is like tying up a piece of plastic. We've
Right.
been hard to get electricity into the amphitheater so that people wouldn't have to bring in their terribly smelly and non-environmentally friendly gas generators. So this is kind of the same idea behind that in the design somehow,
Yeah.
about that. And it's not
Yeah.
just, it's not just the kids, which there's a lot of kids, but there are older people that use that use those fields as well. Thanks.
Mhm. Yep. So yeah, I'll bring that back and see if there is anything that we can do.
I don't see any questions.
All right. Well, thank you everyone again. Oh, Wendy.
Oh, wait, Wendy. Go ahead, Wendy.
Thank you. When we were out there, there were construction workers they had their machines going and it was pretty dusty. And it was
Mhm.
interesting to see that they weren't wearing any kind of masks. Is that normal, usual that the people operating that equipment that's rolling back and forth over those the fill all day, they don't wear masks?
I'm not sure. I would have to ask our team and like what the proper PPE is for someone in, the people doing different operations, but I can ask and let you know.
Okay, and I also noticed that the fill material that's in the turf is leaking out on the side of the new field. So those little granules, I think it's called EcoFill, but it's actually kind of just a name. It's not really Eco or EnviroFill.
Mm-hmm.
When you look it up, it's PFAS, PFOAs, it's the forever chemicals. Is there any process to keep that out of the water, out of the river, out of the sewage system?
So during construction, there's the SWIP. We're required to follow the SWIP plan, stormwater pollution prevention. But I would have to check about the design of the park and preventing them from getting into the river.
Yeah, because the construction's relatively short compared to the life of the park, and that will be breaking down continually.
Mm-hmm.
And it's already a concern on Pier 42. It was after the first storm, and yet here we now have a whole nother group of it right by the river.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Diane?
Hey Parker, since we have an extra couple minutes, for the people who weren't on the walkthrough, could you just really quickly explain the process of what's going to happen with the bridges? You know,
Yes.
thank you.
Yep. So I'll go back to the photo. Uh, so the one on the left is what used to be the passive lawn and where they will be assembled. So as you most of you know, the bridges were built in Italy, and then they did a test assembly to make sure everything fit together properly, and then disassembled it. And then they shipped the pieces of the bridges over. Well, right now only the Delancey Street Bridge is here. The Corlears Hook Bridge is still being constructed, but they sent it over on a barge. Now the bridge is in Newark, I believe, and then it will be brought some pieces by barge, some pieces by truck to the site. And then once they're all there, they will assemble the bridge on these sort of like pedestals or and then once everything is fitted together and they've finished putting the bridge together and testing it, they'll have these like remote controlled machines on wheels that go up under it and pick it up, and then it'll require a full FDR closure, which will happen overnight, and then remotely the team will roll the bridge onto the FDR and then roll it up to where it needs to be placed, and then like put it into place using a crane from the I forget what the exact term is for those remote controlled moving units, but it'll be really interesting to see. I think I mean, it's going to take many hours over the course of one night to be put into place. But then after it's put into place, they'll do the final finishings, like paving the bridge so that the path is continuous to get from the ramps onto the bridge, testing it now that it's in place to make sure that it's safe for folks to go over it. And then eventually opening it. So there I'll try to find a video of another similar bridge placement process to share with you all. And then they'll do the same exact thing for the Corlears Hook Bridge. So, and the team is going to set up a time-lapse camera for the assembly of the bridge at the passive lawn, so we can watch the bridge get built and then moved out.
Thank you. And I'll just say that something that escaped me on the walkthrough, but that Desiree was nice enough to, clarify for me is that the Delancey Street Bridge has to go in first because otherwise you couldn't get the Corlears Hook Bridge past.
Right.
Yeah, otherwise you couldn't get the Delancey Bridge past the Corlears Hook Bridge. Because I know that some questions had come up about the order in which they were being installed, but because of the gigantic size, I suppose, then, okay. All right.
Yes.
No,
Yeah, I
just
think, and I think originally when the Corlears Hook Bridge was supposed to be put in place first, they were planning to assemble the Delancey Street Bridge in a different location,
Mhm.
but they realized it made more sense to assemble them both in the same place
Oh,
and
I
put the
see.
Delancey Street Bridge in first.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank
All
you,
right.
Parker.
Of
And Julie.
course. Thank you. Have a good rest of your night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Parker.
Okay, everybody. So as we typically do, we'll take a 2-minute break before we reconvene for the CAG only conversation. So see you at around 5:01. Okay, everybody, welcome back. I have I have like 3 agenda items. But does anyone want to say something to kick us off? All righty, I presume you're all back from your break. Don't see
Present
Bob.
and accounted for.
I'm back.
Okay, cool, thank you.
We're
Like,
alive, Paula, we're alive.
yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not really seeing any signs of life, but okay,
How
cool.
do you, okay, I'll say this. How do you argue with process? Clearly outlined process. What do you say about that?
I like Diane's suggestion.
That was great, Diane.
About the CAG being a consultant party.
Yes, although
Okay.
it's discouraging to hear that HUD might, disqualify us because we don't have an elected leader or something.
Yeah,
I think we should look into that because, to me, that seems like the best way to get all the voices heard because all the voices are invited to this CAG.
It does make sense, but I agree with you that we're probably going to be disqualified because there's not a central leadership. We're also not a recognized 501c3, though I'm not 100% sure that's a requirement, but we're not we're not incorporated in any way, shape, or form.
Right, but just like this CAG was formed, maybe, we have to say you need we want community participation in this process. So, you know what I mean? Somehow.
And aren't we appointed by borough presidents and city council members? And don't they sometimes come to this meeting? I mean, I'm pulling up the Federal Register to see if it says there's any requirement. So there must be some reason we are formed. I mean.
Yeah, maybe we can get like more of an informal meeting together where we really talk with people about what sort of comments they have. And then between Friends of Coraliers, Ecology Center, and I think also Lesby, we are all registered partners that could definitely talk about those comments in our comments. I mean, of course, it would be best if the CAG has a voice, and that's what we should try to find out. But I also think there might be workarounds.
Mhm.
sense. So are there objections if I reach out to Julie to ask about this?
Yep.
No, but the only comment I'll make, Paula, is that maybe it can be tailored just to this specific issue. If we need to elect leadership, it might be easier and simpler and less complicated.
So what would be easier and less complicated? If we're able to like elect leadership to be official, I don't quite understand.
Yeah, what I'm saying is to elect a appointed representative on this specific fireboat house rather than as a leadership of the CAG in totality.
But don't we have like a process? I mean, we all vote on things, and then
We do.
if
We have a voting threshold, but what I'm just saying is teasing out the difference between voting for a head of the CAG versus voting for a head on this specific issue, because I don't know that the CAG is always so fixed, even just in terms of the participation. And I'm just saying, I think the premise here is workarounds, figuring out how to finesse it, in other words.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Frank, and I agree. I think because, it's in our bylaws, I think that, like one member can't speak for everybody else unless there's a vote or something like that. So we'd be going against our bylaws to have one person represent us on this one particular thing. So we either need to make an exception for this one particular thing, or decide that that bylaw doesn't exist anymore and create some sort of leadership structure for the CAG in general. I would vote for just an exception for this one particular thing.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was thinking too. The workaround could be making an acceptable exception for this one issue.
What do people think about that?
I think it's so important to the future of the park that it makes sense.
I just
And-
want to echo Frank's concern because I think it got kind of lost that it would be for this one particular issue and not speaking on the behalf of the for all issues because there's other issues and but I do think there are workarounds since I'm looking at this list and there's people on this list who are on the CAG. I mean, who are on that list who are on the CAG also. So I just want to, you know. I hear what Frank is saying, just for this one particular issue, if we get that far.
So as a next step, should I reach out to Julie and just see, just in case, if the CAG is eligible under its current form? And then we'll just take it from there. And if she says no, we'll consider this workaround.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I would, start talking to her about it now. She did say that the issue was that someone would have to sign the agreement. And, if there's a way for the CAG to authorize somebody to do that in this case for this specific issue, then maybe that would be the only obstacle.
Okay, I will, Tara's making, oh,
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I don't know how Christine feels about this, but I think that maybe to make it easier, if people, again, we might, depending on what Julie says, maybe to make it easier, the person who signs that agreement is either me or Christine, since we've signed it already for our own organizations.
yeah. Okay, so let me reach out to Julie and we will take it from there. Does that sound like a good next step?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Next topic is what came up in, I think it was last month's meeting when Dina shared a kind of cautionary tale about how Styco Park has been redone. And so she offered to take CAG members on a walkthrough of Styco Park. So I don't think she's here today, but Diane reminded me of that yesterday, of that offer that Dina made. So I will reach out to her and try to get some dates for that to happen. Hopefully it'll be a nice spring day. So anything else on that topic?
She pointed out how they didn't put any kind of little curbs around or edging around the beds and how washout was happening.
Yeah.
So I've now reached out to Rick Fogarty at Pier 42, same condition there.
Mhm.
And I said, do we really want to have all that soil on the walkways so fast? And why not complete the job? Of course, it helps keep pets out and everything else. So maybe we'll end up with a little edge. I don't know.
Okay.
I actually was do people know that the commissioner, the new Manhattan Parks commissioner, was along for that tour? And I thought that was really interesting. And I actually thought, should we ask, because she was asking a lot of questions. It was
Yeah.
not very familiar to her, ESCR. And I wondered if we could offer her a tour of the north end of the park. And part of the reason I'm saying that is it definitely caught my ear when they said they've made design changes in PA1. And some of that's about that esplanade that Parker talked about today. But I would still like to see the grove of trees protected that's at 6th Street. And I don't know if it's even possible remotely, but maybe that's something the Parks Commissioner would respond to, or other concerns about that end of the park. NPA2.
Any responses to that idea?
She's Trisha Shimamura is her name.
Well, I think
Nope.
what would be helpful for the CAG and for parks to just be present in this process. And this is something that I asked her just when we all parted, so to speak, our ways, because I just really feel a lot of times we have issues coming up, and then Parker or Desiree are, oh, we're going to reach out to parks to ask this question. I just think it would be super helpful for us to just really have a parks representative at CAG meetings and also at the community board that understands something about ESCR and can answer questions.
Well, you just,
What was her response?
She said she would try, right?
Yeah, she kind of nodded and said, I hear you.
Because they have a new resiliency person who they said was going to come to the meeting.
Right. And I thought I saw him on the call at the very, very beginning,
You
but
may have.
yeah, but then later on I looked again and I did not see him.
Both of those positions, the people are new, and to a certain extent, they're new with parks.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to say that.
Mm-hmm.
well, I reached out, so we had this conversation last month, and so I reached out to parks. I reached out to Melissa. Melissa's on leave, temporary leave. So I got put in touch with this guy who was at the walkthrough, whose name escapes me right now. He was unable to, so I asked him, can someone from Parks attend future CAG meetings? And he can attend today or next week or next month, but he told me his colleague would attend. And I chatted with this guy, Luke, during the walkthrough. So he wasn't here today. I was kind of expecting him to be. So I can follow up with him and try to make sure someone from Parks starts to come to these regularly.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, because I think there, are two things. Like Parks was able a couple of years ago to do that walkthrough of the North End with us. And I forget who all was there representing Parks. I think Christina and Trevor, who was the person? Bonnie, yes, thank
Bonnie
you.
Williams and
Yes.
and of course our manager Jamil Phillips.
Yeah. Because I think there's really two issues. One is that, obviously Parks budget has been completely slashed. The North End is going to be open longer than anticipated, I think, because, the South End is not reopening. Desiree did tell us at the walkthrough that if they don't open something down there, they're not going to close anymore up in the North End. So we've got to keep the North End as usable and pleasant as possible, as long as it's there. And then, we have everything that's going on in the South End. So it would be great. I mean, I don't know if Luke can play both of those roles or whether we need somebody who's sort of more on the day-to-day sort of operations side of Parks as well.
At the last meeting, I forget who raised the issue of the ball field conditions, but is there a list of those conditions that we can follow up on
I mean, I think we can, I think we could do our own individual walkthroughs. I mean, obviously, I spend a lot of time there. I was actually thinking of, just starting a list anyway. So we could handle it that way.
Well, I wasn't, not so much a walkthrough, but here are the issues that we have.
Yeah.
Or the fields being unusable, so that there's more follow-up on the progress and we can see what's going on with each particular item.
Do you mean like on behalf of the CAG? Like,
On behalf of the CAG, but it's also something that could be discussed at the community board. But
yeah.
if I'm not aware of it, or people aren't aware of it, we can't. I'd like to give them a chance to address it before the meeting. So I was just looking for a list of, these are the problems that we have in this park right now. What's the solution and what are they doing?
One example for that list, there's 2 fenced-in areas just north of the track that I asked last year, could these be opened up? They're just fallow areas. Why can't they be used? And they cleaned them up, but they never opened the fence, the gate. And now we have cleared areas that are fenced in. And so much around it, you cannot enter. But why not those areas? I don't know.
So if we're going to make a master list, then, I mean, I can volunteer to get that together on behalf of the CAG because I'm in there all the time anyway. I mean, do you want, individual citizens to submit stuff to you, Trevor, or do you want it to come from the CAG, or how do you want your master list?
Yeah, it can come from the CAG, but this is
Okay.
really focusing on park issues.
Yes.
As opposed to construction issues. It's
Yes,
more
yes.
about
Right.
the ball fields being playable and usable.
Exactly.
So we can pressure them to get the only usable portions in proper shape.
We've been
Yeah.
asking for parks, or I've been, and I think everyone's been asking for parks participation in these meetings, right? And
Yeah, I just think this might be a little different because it's more about the existing park and it being usable, which really isn't a construction issue. It's more of a basically parks doing their job or lack thereof.
right. We've also been asking about what other spaces have they opened up, right? That was the other thing too, because
Oh.
be a whole lot more in the community.
Yeah, I just want to interject with East River Park. We're really in trouble there on the northern end because we have 2 people that have been in that park forever and they just retired. Drummond was one of them. He was amazing. He really, he lives in the neighborhood. He really took care of this park. He was out there at 6 in the morning to clean up after in picnic season, handing people trash bags and saying, look, just clean up after yourself. And he's gone. And I'm just concerned that Parks doesn't, we'll say we don't have the resources to really put, a crew in there that will really take responsibility and do the job of cleaning this park. And yeah, it's just, it's just it'll be a shame if the last season where this park is open, that it will just get will not be very pleasant, because right now already garbage is just piling up everywhere, and it's pretty dire how it looks now, and that's not even at the height of the season when people really come out into this park.
I think then I love Wendy's suggestion about getting the commissioner to do the northern end park route, let her come in there and take a look at it and see it for herself.
Paula, did you speak to Max or
No.
email Max? Because she had 2 people with her. One of them was Luke, the resiliency person, and the other was Max. So,
No, no, I didn't meet Max.
okay.
Okay. Max, I could reach out to him.
Is that Max Lerner?
No.
Different Max.
Max works with Steve, yeah, I could reach out to Max. We had a nice chat as an ex-Parky. I had a nice talk with him.
That might be good.
Maybe he wants us to try to see if we can schedule her. He'd be doing that. Is that what you're asking, Diana?
Well, no, Paula said that she had talked to someone about getting more parks participation. I also had a chat with Max at the walkthrough, and I actually did reach out to him about all this. Didn't hear anything back. So I thought, oh, maybe Paula already contacted him and I'm just, wasting his time being redundant. So that's why I asked if it was Max. So
Here, I'm just gonna put in the chat. When we were down there, I looked at the ferry boards. There's now discount ferry tickets. It's a little bit tricky process, and it wouldn't take my ID online. So you have to stop at the Pier 11, which is very inconvenient for a lot of people. But $1.35 makes it a lot more affordable for people, and maybe that's something that our groups can help people find out about, because that's a big difference for people who want to use the ferry system.
Thanks, Wendy. But going back to the parks issue, so Diane, do you want to start? You have a list already. Can you share a list? Maybe
Yeah.
make a Google Doc, share with me. I'll share it with the CAG. Populate the document with your questions and concerns about the non-construction issues and the usability of the park, the parts that are open, obviously. And then I'll reach out to Max. Maybe I could also reach out to Luke again, but kind of share this list with them before next month's meeting. So maybe they can A, be at the meeting and B, answer some of those questions or address some of those issues.
yeah, and I would just, encourage them to not think of it as just a one-time thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That CAG wants a relationship with parks
Yeah.
so that it's not just about the construction.
Yep. No, I made that clear to them. I forwarded the invites for all the meetings that are scheduled up to July. I wasn't like, can you come next month? I phrased it as, can you start to be there on the regular? So,
Okay.
so yeah, Diane, if you could share that list with me, that'd be great. And again, I'll give the rest of the CAG access to it so they can put stuff into, and then I'd like to share that with Parks in the next, week or two. The sooner the better. Anything else? I've gone through the items that, were on my mind that needed to be discussed, but are we missing anything?
Sounds like a no to me.
Okay.
Meeting adjourned.
All right. Okay. Thank
Right,
you,
thanks.
everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
evening.
you.
Bye.
You too.
Hi,
Bye.
everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good night.